there, guys. It's H&M here, also known as Pastor Mallory, the children's pastor at Northgate Wesleyan Church. And we just got done debriefing about Isaiah on Monday, and today we have moved into the book of Daniel, and we first talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I always say Abednego. I always put the N before the D, but apparently that's not how that's spelled, so it's Abednego. So those are who we're going to talk about today. And before we jump right in, it is important that we include our littles in this adventure and searching for the truth. So my task for the littles today is another activity that will require the help of their parents, because I am asking the littles to create a creed, just something that they're willing to state on behalf of their beliefs for God. So I have a fill in the blank kind of a creed that you can add to. So it says, "Dear God, I would face blank for you. I would eat blank for you. I would love blank for you." So that would be the creed, and then you would sign your name at the bottom of the paper, just a statement declaring how much you love your God and what you would do for him. So I'm going to tell you what I would fill mine in with. I would say, "Dear God, I would face the biggest giant for you. I would eat the hottest pepper for you. I would love my enemies for you." And then I'll sign the end, Pastor Mallory. Just like that, okay? So that is what I'm challenging you littles to do, to think about what would you do for your God whom you love. So parents, here is a picture for you to see it written out. And that way you can write it down so that you can have the kids fill it in. So I'm excited to see what the kids come up with. You can fill it in with anything that you think of, because it's about you making your declarations to your God. So that's my challenge to the littles. And now it's time for us to get to the 3 points that will lead us to understand Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego a little bit better, okay? First point. We actually get physical characteristics again. We are told that they are the youth, that they are handsome. We're told they're pretty much good at everything that they do. They're good at learning, and they are knowledgeable and have wisdom. All these amazing things, like God has favored them and gifted them. He has a purpose for them, for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as well as Daniel. And we find out that is not their original names. Those are the names that are given to them, probably based on these pagan gods. Their names changed. So their names originally were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. I had to look at them because I know them best as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But their names were not that. They had Hebrew names, and then they were renamed by the king. These are men that were taken in captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. So they are actually captives that are being given authority. They were trained for 3 years to learn the ways of Babylon, and so that they would be useful in the nation. So it's kind of incredible. God is going to do some good things to them. Which leads me to my second point, okay guys? Because God had plans for them, God made it so that they were truly favored by the king, because he saw such greatness in them. And all that greatness was bestowed upon them from God. And so it's kind of awesome that here these people are from Jerusalem. They were captives, pretty much slaves, brought to this country and asked to acclimate into the culture, assimilate into the culture, so that they can use their giftings to make their nation even stronger. Well, even though the king was wise in doing this, and he did favor these 3 men as well as Daniel, it didn't mean that he was 100% successful in his plans, because he wanted them to become like completely Babylonian. But that is not what their intentions were. They knew that they would come and help this place prosper, but they were going to be faithful to their God only. So they weren't going to be violent or revolt. They knew the wisest thing to do was to follow what God had in store for them, and that was to be humble and work in the place that they were. But that didn't mean they were going to defile themselves by doing things that they knew wasn't good. For example, when they first get there, they choose not to eat the royal food because they didn't want to be tempted. And if they got into the habit of eating the royal foods, maybe they would no longer be humble. So they didn't want it to tempt them away. It was important to them to stay true to what they knew was right. Which leads me into our third and final point, which is that when their faith was tested, they held up true. Because what does the king decide to do? He decides that he's going to create this golden image of himself, a giant golden image. And every time the people heard the sound of music, they were required to fall down on their face and worship the king's idol. Now, as you can imagine, not everybody loved these Jewish men. No. They were found favor in God's eyes, and some of the magicians and the advisors of the king did not like that because sometimes they were seen as better than them. And so they're like, how can we get rid of them? They're causing trouble and we want them gone. We don't want them to be favored. We want to be favored. So they decide that they're going to go rat them out and be like, yeah, you have this law that the people are supposed to do it. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're not doing it. And so the king brings them in angry. He's like, how could they disobey me? They are supposed to follow the laws. They come before the king. He questions them and they say, we cannot bow before you. There's only one God. Yeah, he gets super angry at their response. In fact, he's so angry that he makes sure that the fiery furnace they're going to be thrown into is heated up 7 times hotter than it's ever been. To the point that the soldiers who are taking them to the fire are actually consumed by the flames themselves. However, as the king is looking down, he must have been up high above it, he could look down into the fiery furnace and he could see them walking around. He could hear them singing praises to their God. And then miraculously, he saw a 4th person walking around in the fiery furnace. Now, it could have been just an angel or it could have been the presence of Jesus. But whoever it is, we know it is the presence of God that is keeping them safe. So the king has them pulled out, taken out of the fiery furnace, and when they come out, it says they don't even smell like smoke. They don't have singed clothing. They don't have any burnt anything. Nothing. It's like they didn't even walk in. They were completely pristine so that no one could deny the fact that they were saved by their God. Which, guys, this is the coolest part of this whole story. That right before they were thrown into this fiery furnace, the king says, the only way you're going to survive this is if your God decides to save you. And they stand up and they said, our God could choose to save us, and if he did choose to save us, he would. However, even if he doesn't save us, we still will not worship you. There is only one God, and he is the one we choose. Which is amazing. They were facing the possibility of death, and not a pleasant one, to go into a fiery furnace. But they were willing to face that for their God. So my question to you, agents of truth, let's get serious here. What are you willing to face, to experience, to do for your God? It's a big question, but each day you're gonna face it. Because maybe today it was being nice to my brother and sister, which is sometimes very hard. Maybe tomorrow it is listening to my mother and father. Maybe tomorrow it is listening to what my teachers have to say. Whatever it is, Make sure that you're doing it for your God in the right ways. Know what your God wishes of you and do it. But you have to make that choice. When your faith is tested, where will you stand? That is the question. And so that is what I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this study of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Searching the truth can at times be incredible. Let's talk about who we're going to look at Friday. And yes, I mentioned already, it's going to be Daniel. So we have to take a look at Daniel. I have a few more verses than we had for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego because Daniel is more highlighted in the book of Daniel. And of course, if you are new to watching these videos and you too want to have the information that we've been collecting, email me at this email right here, and I will make sure that you are sent all of the documents that we've already done and any that we do in the future. With that, I will say over and out to all my agents out there searching the truth, and it's time to put out the fire.